Round up what's been an unbelievably busy transfer window for Birmingham City on their return to the Championship. It was only going to be one thing on deadline day. More carnage, more transfer dealings getting done, and a couple more incomings coming into Birmingham City, ready for the new season ahead. If you're a Birmingham City fan, then do hit subscribe on this channel. This is the place to be for Birmingham City content. We do a lot of Birmingham City content and general Championship content on this page, so do hit that subscribe button. It only takes 1 second. And as well as that, do drop a like as well if you do go on to enjoy the video. So of course, we only expected Birmingham to be busy after that season in League One. Of course, such a successful season, breaking the points record. Going into the Championship, it really does feel like, especially at the start of the winter, you got the kind of vibe that Birmingham weren't here to mess about in the slightest. Of course, they have the stadium plans in the future, just in a few years' time, and they would ideally, I'd imagine, want to be in the Premier League for that new stadium. And as I say, they're not messing about with their transfer, especially at the start of the window when we kind of saw the kind of activity that Birmingham were up to. We thought straight away this is going to be a serious side this season. When we saw the likes of Tommy Doyle coming in, we saw the likes of osayi, Samuel, demarai, kyogo. We saw big signings, especially a big money signing in Kyogo, of course, signed. As well, of course, these players are on big wages now. In demarai, of course, coming in with Premier League experience, hundreds of games in the Premier League. osayi, Samuel doing really well over in Turkey and completely adapting his game to now being a fullback. Tommy Doyle, who's played 50 games in the Premier League. And as well as that, they brought in some players as well, which have been very, very good and very proven players at the Championship level over the last few years as well. You look at Cashin as well, he's been really good for Derby County. Things haven't started all too perfect for him at Birmingham City, but as I say, this is a player that was very, very highly regarded at Derby County. And then you look at Brian Lewis Kumas, who's a young player who's definitely got potential to grow on loan from Liverpool. Players very highly thought of over at Liverpool. Kind of lost his way a little bit at Stoke in the second half of the season, but when he first joined Stoke, he did look like to be a real prospect. And in a Birmingham City side, he could definitely thrive in that side. And he'll definitely be a decent option, I think, in and around that first team squad this season. But of course, we're only going to expect one thing. Birmingham were going to be busy in deadline day. Did we get an absolute statement signing that's going to kind of steal the headlines in terms of who they brought in? Absolutely not. We didn't get a huge transfer, huge money transfer, but I do think the signings that they made will definitely bolster the squad and help out the squad. Now, I want to start off by talking about Jack Robinson. He's a player that I've watched a lot of over the years. I'm a QPR fan. He used to play for QPR. It's where he did very well at QPR before then. He got himself a move to then Nottingham Forest, and since then he's been at Sheffield United, of course, as we know, in recent years. And it was at QPR where before, when he signed for QPR, he was actually a left back, and he kind of adapted then to playing at QPR in a more centre-back role. So he can, of course, play in the left-back role, which is a position that I thought Birmingham could potentially go in and strengthen because, of course, they've been playing Ethan Laird there due to the injury at their left-back position. So as I say, Ethan Laird, he's played there and he's done well there. Will Robinson come in and kind of be able to play in that left-back role? I'm not so sure. He's not played at left-back in a long, long time. And, of course, then he's predominantly, as we know, a centre-back. Could he maybe be helpful in maybe if Birmingham do adapt system and maybe play it through at the back at some point, potentially? But you'd imagine Robinson, for the most part, would be a backup player at Birmingham. When you look at the kind of players they've got at centre-back, we'll discuss that centre-back role in a second. But yeah, Sheffield United, he's done pretty decent over the years. I know a lot of Sheffield United fans have given him stick and that, but there's no denying that. This guy's been a very good servant for Sheffield United. You know what you're going to get from him. He gives 110% every single game. I mean, by the way, we saw when he played against Birmingham in the cup. I mean, he was mouthing off Kyogo, also pushed Kyogo over, and as well, he's mouthing off to the linesman as well. I mean, it was an interesting one, that was. Now he's signing for Birmingham just a couple of weeks after them kind of antics against him, which is quite funny. But as I say, this guy's been a very good servant for Sheffield United. Things kind of fell off and the Sheffield United fans didn't rate him as much towards the end. He is now 32 years old. He's on a 2-year contract, which, I mean, he will be 34 when his contract does expire. And Birmingham did, I believe, pay a little bit of money. It's an undisclosed fee. I'm not sure how much it is. Let me know if you do know. But I'd imagine it won't be all too much money. But this guy is a very decent Championship centre-back. You know what you're going to get from him. And people have given the transfer stip. But as I say, I don't think this guy will be playing week in, week out. And he's a player that can come into the side. And I don't think he'd let you down because he's a player that, as I say, he's so well accomplished at Championship level. Look at how many games he's played at this level. Look at when he was playing for QPR, Forest. This guy's played for so many matches in the Championship. At 32 years old, as I say, he's a player that can come into the side if you have injuries, and as well as that, he's a player that knows the Championship inside out, and I don't think he'd be all too much of a letdown, even though, as I say, he has got a lot of stick at the end of his Sheffield United career, and Sheffield United fans are quite happy to see the back of him, but I do just think his kind of time at Sheffield United has just quite naturally just come to an end, and it was time for him to get a new move, and I do think he'll be a solid addition to this Birmingham side. As I say, how many minutes will he get? I'm not so sure, because you kind of look, if we just have a look at their last starting 11, of course, they've got Clara, and as well, they've got Newman as kind of the first two choices centre-back. Then you've also got, of course, Cashin as well. Like, there's a lot of players, and then you think, could maybe Robinson go out to left back? He's not played there in years, and I don't know, at 32 years old, he could really play that role to the way that Birmingham City would want to play with with the way that they play, with the way that Chris Davis wants to play. I'm not sure if Robinson will be able to adapt to that. Could maybe in some games that they'd be adaptable, maybe go to a 3 at the back formation that Robinson's obviously very comfortable in playing in that Sheffield United side that's been 3 at the back for a lot of the time that Jack Robinson's played there, potentially. So I do think he'll be a good utility signing, but as I say, the signing is nothing really to write home about. People will probably give the transfer stick. I don't think it's a bad transfer in the slightest. 2-year deal maybe, but as I say, Birmingham are in a good financial situation, and at the end of the day, I don't think it's a bad move for Birmingham. I don't think it's a bad move for Jack Robinson as well. He's joined a very good team. And Sheffield United, listen, they've struggled at the start of the season. They haven't been impressive at all. They've been not great at the back at all. Jack Robinson's joined a different team now, different environment. I think this will be a decent move for him, and we'll see how it pans out. As I say, I don't think he'll get all too many minutes. I think it has to be injuries to a few players for him to come in, but I think he offers good depth and, as I say, very good championship experience. And then as well as that, we of course got Patrick Roberts, who was also signed on deadline day as well on a loan deal from Sunderland, where, I mean, Patrick Roberts has definitely lost his way over the last few seasons. I'd say he didn't do too bad last season. If you look at his stats, he did pick up 8 assists, but I was watching Sunderland in the playoffs, I was watching them at the back end of the season. With the kind of other players they had in that starting lineup, I did kind of think that Roberts was kind of the weak point in that team. I didn't think he was at the same level of them other Sunderland players. Don't get me wrong, I think he is a good championship player. You look at that season in 22-23, where he got 5 goals, 7 assists, and I believe the season that season where Sunderland did get into the playoffs, and he was a very good and very key part in that. Obviously, they had Amad Diallo, they had Patrick Roberts, who was firing at that time. Then, as I say, 23-24, it didn't work out. Got a little bit better in the 24-25 season in the championship. 2 goals, 8 assists, not enough goals. As I say, his end product in terms of his goals, his shooting isn't exactly the best. There's definitely a few chances that he missed last season. He had a penalty, I remember, against Sheffield United that he ended up getting that one saved. And as well as that, as I say, in terms of his goal output, it hasn't really been good enough, and it hasn't really been there throughout his whole career. I mean, his best scoring season is playing for Celtic in 2016-17, but if you're talking in recent years, it's 22-23 season. But that's not to deny what Patrick Roberts offers to a side. He's very good in that way. He's very good, a very technically gifted player, and can definitely pick out a pass. And as I say, he's got 8 assists. He can definitely play that final ball through to maybe a player like Kyogo, will be up top and play them kind of balls in behind. Very good winger, but as I say, I do think he has kind of lost his way over the last few years at Sunderland. I think for him, it probably is the best decision for him to get himself a move. And again, how many minutes will he kind of get in this Birmingham City side? I mean, you imagine I think he's a better option than Williamson over on that right hand side. Of course, they've got Demarai Gray over on that left hand side, but they have got a lot of options that can kind of play in that winger position. Of course, you've got the likes of Keshi Anderson, who's done very well for Birmingham City. You've also got Lewis Kumas as well, who the course brought in, who can kind of play multiple different roles. But I think on a loan deal, on a deadline day signing, I think it's a decent signing again. Patrick Roberts, does it scream like it's real promotion signings? Like at the start of the window, as I say, I wanted the signings that they made, as I was discussing before, the likes of Kyogo, Demarai Gray, Brightside Samuel, Tommy Doyle, even Cashin at the time. I don't know about Cashin now, but these players that I was seeing sign, I'm thinking that Birmingham are really going for a promotion push straight away here. You know what I mean? They're absolutely going all out because they see the opportunity. They see the likes of Ipswich that might not be as good as we expect. They see the likes of Southampton, the same case. Leicester, potential points deduction. They definitely sense an opportunity there. But as I say, the signings at the end of the window, I think these 3 at the end here were kind of like, I think they're good signings, don't get me wrong, but does it scream we're going to go for automatic promotion and we're trying to get promotion right now? Those signings there at the end of the window for me just scream like they're good championship signings, they're good championship players, and they don't scream like automatic promotion, top-end championship signings, in my personal opinion. But as I say, they've got a very strong squad. These players definitely bolstered to the squad. And as I say, all these players, would you say they absolutely, they could have made a sign at the end of the transfer window and think, would one of these players walk straight into our team? We're going to make a real statement signing. I wouldn't say any of these last 3 signings are statement signings that are real head-turner signings. I think the players that can be in and around the first team. But as I say, I don't think any of these players are walking into this Birmingham City camp and thinking, we're going to walk straight into this team, because as I said, the squad's already at a very high level, and as well as that, these players for me, in terms of the kind of credit that they've got in the bank, in the terms of ability they've shown over the last few years, I don't think they can absolutely just walk in and say they should be starting in this Birmingham City side. I'd say Patrick Roberts was definitely played a good part in that Sunderland side getting promoted last season. Jack Robinson's been a player that's played parts in Sheffield United getting promoted. He's played games in the Premier League, played numerous games in the Championship. Lewis Kumas is still a very young player. But as I said, compared to these signings at the start of the window where I was talking about initially when I was talking about Birmingham, I was looking at these signings like this is a serious like super team level signings when you look at all these signings, right? Even Marvin Dutschke as well with his record over in Germany. I think we're not seeing a lot of him yet, and I think when he gets fully fit, I think he'll be a very good option. We saw his record in Germany, and I mean he literally got called up for the German national team literally like 2 or 3 years ago. That's the kind of player that we're talking about here. As I said, these last 3 signings, I'm not sure if they're not going to get the fans as hyped as maybe, as I say, a statement signing would, which Birmingham fans were maybe hoping for at the end of the window. But there's not to deny that Birmingham City have had an unbelievable transfer. And you forget Newman down there as well, who's obviously coming on a free transfer as well. I think it's been an unbelievable transfer window overall for Birmingham. And as I say, I do think they'll be right up there come the end of the season. I think minimum they'll be in and around the playoffs, and I do think they could potentially even push for the autos. As I say, maybe things have dampened a little bit with the kind of recent couple of performances in terms of, the result against Leicester 2-0, but Leicester are a very, very good team coming down from the Premier League. It's always going to be difficult coming up against a parachute payment team that's got that kind of quality in Leicester City. And by the way, of course, it's easy to forget, with so much quality in this side and how good Birmingham are, they're a newly promoted club from League One. You can't absolutely expect they're going to walk this league and it's all going to be plain sailing for them, because it's absolutely not. The Birmingham fans are well aware the Championship is such a difficult league and it's an unforgiving league, and if you're not playing your best or if you're not taking your chance, which has been the case with Birmingham at times, you are going to get punished at this level, because that's just the way the Championship is. It's a very cruel league, and if you're not on it, things can change very quickly, and you can find your way falling down the table very quickly within a few games, because as I say, that's just how the Championship is. There's so many teams where you think the gap in ability really isn't that much between each side, and as I said, Birmingham are well in the mix in terms of their ability, and they've got very good depth in the squad as well, in my opinion. So I do think they'll be up there come the end of the season. It's just kind of a wait and see. Obviously, now we've got the international break where you look at teams like Leicester, another 2 weeks to work, and it did take Leicester last time they were in the Championship a little bit to kind of click into gear properly. We haven't seen the best of Leicester yet, in my opinion, and we certainly haven't seen the best of the likes of Ipswich, who are sat in 20th, the likes of Southampton as well, who also have endured a difficult start to the Championship season as well in terms of performances, and teams have really given them difficult games. But I do really think this season the Championship is going to be such a competitive league, and it's going to be, as I say, more competitive than ever. The Championship is known for being competitive, but I think this gap at the top maybe is getting a little bit smaller this season. I don't know if there'll be as many teams walking away with it. We saw last season, obviously, you had Leeds United, Burnley, who were just like pretty much unstoppable for the majority of the season. Even Sheffield United, to a degree, coming out with like 90 points, whatever it was. Those teams had with such a big gap then between them and the rest of the division in terms of the 46-game season. Obviously, in the playoffs, anything can happen, and Sunderland won them. But I don't know if the gap will be quite as big this season. I think the points might be a little bit lower, and I think there's going to be quite a few teams competing up there, because you look at the likes of Coventry that have been scoring goals for fun this season. Some real dark horse in there as well that start the season very well. And there's no doubt for me Birmingham City can be one of those teams, absolutely. And all it takes is a couple of teams to drop off. Teams will get injuries as well throughout the season. I think that's where Birmingham have this kind of a lot more depth, especially with these signings that they've brought in. They'll help later on in the season when there is going to be players injured. Undoubtedly, there's always, it's difficult. It's 46 games, 2 games a week sometimes, and you are going to get injured players. And as I say, it can benefit Birmingham having such a strong squad and so many players in terms of their bench options as well, which will only help them later down the line in the season. So as I say, I think it's been a really positive transfer window for Birmingham. I think they've had a fantastic window. Can Birmingham fans expect promotion this season? Absolutely not. Can they expect to be in and around the playoffs? In my opinion, absolutely yes. But as I say, I think the main goal is to be in the Premier League for the time that new stadium is built, and ideally, to be an established Premier League club. But we all know, if Birmingham, I do think it's more of a case of when than if, in my personal opinion. But whenever they do get promoted, you know that Birmingham are going to, under this ownership, and it's so much positivity, with what's happened before at Birmingham. The owners are absolutely, they're absolutely invested in this Birmingham City side. They're invested in this project and invested in making Birmingham succeed and get themselves to the Premier League. And as I say, by the time that stadium is built, who knows? Birmingham might just be an established Premier League club, and that's exactly where they want to be in the next few years. So as I say, a lot of positivity. And as I say, maybe a little bit disappointing in terms of the transfers that came in at the end. But as I say, I think it's been a really strong window overall. You've got to look at it from the bigger picture. And I think it's been a fantastic window for Birmingham City. And they're one of the winners of the transfer window, in my personal opinion. They haven't even spent a lot of money. Look at the net spend. It's not a lot. Obviously, they spent a lot on wages, but they maybe not spent as much as what people maybe anticipated at the start of the transfer window. But as I say, I think it's been a really successful window. I think they've made some real smart moves. and it'll be interesting to see how the season goes on. So let me know if you're a Birmingham City fan. Let me know what you think of the transfer window in the comment section down below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video. It only takes 1 second. It'd be very greatly appreciated. By the way, if you're not subscribed, please do hit that subscribe button. If you've watched this point, you may as well hit that subscribe button. As I say, if you're a Birmingham City fan, if you're a Championship fan, this is the place to be. Do just hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a lot, and it'd be very greatly appreciated. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.